we'll go ahead and let the match actually speak for itself. And as we load in, DarkZero will start on defense, Spacestation on attack.
We can theorize and theorycraft all we want, but at the end of the day, the match is not played in our minds, it's played in the server. So whether it be SSG or DZ coming out ahead, I think there are two competing theories here, and for fans of either SSG or fans of DZ, they have something to hang their hat on. The operator bans on attack at least look very different than what we saw on Coastline. On Coastline, it was Thatcher and Ying. You look at what's on your screen right now, well, it's Capitao and Maverick. Mira joining them is also a bit unorthodox, and then the final ban is very quick. Is this going to be a Wamai ban? No, it's a Valkyrie ban. So Wamai will be available despite his banning on Coastline. Valkyrie is the only operator who's banned in both affairs. And with Echo's recent nerfs, with Wamai's recent nerfs, we are starting to see Valk bans absolutely skyrocket because teams don't want to run a Thatcher. They don't want to run an IQ. Twitch drones aren't really looking for those black eye cams. So it's easier to just remove her from the fray. Anywho, let's get into round number one. DZ is going to be starting on defense on a map that is known for being extremely friendly to the defenders. Not as friendly as it used to be, but still defense usually has the edge. And when you look at Church and Arsenal, there are so many different ways that you can play this bomb site. You've got a Legion, you've got a Mute, you've got a Pulse. It's entirely possible with a Melusi on the board as well that DZ is going to spend quite a bit of time off site to try and waste SSG's utility before they can get in and begin their execute.
Let's take a look at that. 2 bulletproof cams on the defense. DarkZero bringing Mint with the bulletproof, Hot and Cold with the bulletproof. So this is interesting because basically what they can do there is actually where they put those cams is where you would put Evil Eyes basically. Typically a better Evil Eye positioning in blue is actually on the pillar in the northwest corner, but the bulletproof camera isn't as good in that same spot, so they'll put it on front of utility, and then the other bulletproof went inside of Arsenal looking down the main hallway. So they bring 2 bulletproof cams so they don't have to bring a Maestro, and that way they can bring other operators to do other things with, like a Legion to be annoying, a Mute to facilitate a top floor roam, a Melusi to be annoying, Skies on the Pulse for information. And they've also still got impacts, but they're not going to use them to trick. In fact, Hyper will be roaming with the only set of impacts. So a very different setup from DZ. I like what I'm seeing here. It's an interesting take because it accomplishes all the things you need to accomplish with your standard setup, minus the impact tricking on the drop. And it's, well, something that I don't think many people are going to expect. So that's nice.
So it's correct. Yeah, you've got quite a heavy roam presence here. And you know what? It's often aided by having a Mozzie on the board. I think Mint just saw Fultz wander into CCTV, and the call from DarkZero is to get the hell out of Dodge. So they will retreat back towards the main floor and then also over towards blue. Eclipse still roaming upstairs as the Kaid had tried to waste some time. He's going to get baited and win the fight against Bosco. Goodness gracious. I don't think Eclipse should have been able to walk away from that one. But DZ still obviously riding a high from their Coastline pummeling they gave to SSG, as that's now 2 opening picks. Thinking Nade and Bosco not as effective as you want them to be. And with Thinking Nade going down, being the Hibana, that means that the single exothermic charge of Fultz is all you have left to deal with the 3 hatches or even the church wall, depending on where SSG wants to go. This is really, really bad this round for Space Station.
Not a great start to map number 2, and if it's going to set the tone for the overall match, then I think we all know where this is going. But it's not over yet, of course. Just 1 round. And even this can be recovered. With Thatcher in play, the Thermite of Fultz will be able to open up the drop in a Moto. Doesn't sound like Eclipse is Kaid tricking. That's why Rampy was ready with the second EMP, but not necessary as Eclipse is playing inside of Arsenal. Fultz will get Mint, so an answer back here, although it is somewhat belated. And there's good positioning for DZ overall. Hot and Cold over in Armory will get another kill for DarkZero. And, well, the wall is getting taller here for Space Station to climb up. And it's just Rampy now. Thatcher alone against 4. He's got 30 seconds, but is he even going to get past Moto? It looks like he'll get 1 there. That's something. As Skies hits the floor, Diffuser is recoverable. but he's going to die before he can even get it. Eclipse, great angle play there, deep in Arsenal by his pulse spot, and DarkZero take round number 1.
First kill and last kill for Eclipse, and that's a nice shot. TCSG is not seen as much as it used to be. It was nerfed a fair bit after the 6 Invitational, where we saw a certain Brazilian team running dual TCSGs for site setup and to do significant damage. And then after that, unfortunately, sad noises from Goyo and Kaid mains as their primary gun was nerfed, bringing the AUG and the Vector into play for Kaid and Goyo respectively. In this case, I really liked what we saw to DarkZero, the roam upstairs, the stall upstairs, the Electroclaw being used, and forcing SSG to try and take an engagement up in CCTV and cache, which incidentally ends up being the second bomb site that DarkZero is going to pull out, as we often see Gym and Master, which is the bomb site just on the left side of your screen. Well, it tends to be the tertiary bomb site, aka the third bomb site that shows up. Very few teams enjoy going there, because there's a lot of ways that attackers can punish you if you have even one small thing go awry.
Yeah, you got to be a little creative on Gym, but talking about creativity, and I mentioned it last round, I liked the creativity we saw out of DarkZero on that bottom floor setup. It was weird because it's a familiar strategy, the way they did their utility, and yet an unfamiliar strategy because it was executed differently. So it's different utility, same effects. And those two barricades were just perfectly in sync with Mint and Hot and Cold. That was beautiful. Anyway, this time we're going to cache. This doesn't look to be anything special. One thing to note is that Mint is playing by concrete, whereas Eclipse is playing on the rafters. Usually the roles would be swapped there between your Wamai and your Jaeger. You'd have Jaeger below, Wamai above. But not so here for DarkZero. They have a different plan in mind. We've also got bandit tricking going on. So because the Thatcher is not banned, you're going to bring Thatcher instead of Maverick, because that generally makes things faster. But because you're bringing Thatcher instead of Maverick, you leave yourself exposed to things like bandit tricking, which is exactly what Hot and Cold's trying to do. But he gets the wrong. Well, he might get one of those. No, he won't get either. He does get the second from one of the sets, but the tricking does not work out as Hot and Cold wanted it to.
Even though they haven't really gotten the wall open to a point where the attackers can use that to enter, it still means that the defense can't play anywhere near as confidently in that area. So there are times, and this was something that I touched upon on the coastline map to start off this affair between these two teams, was there are times where you use your utility, especially as a hard breacher. There's now 4 of which can be brought at any point. Only 3 in this map, technically, because Maverick is banned. But there are times where teams will use utility not as an entry point, but simply as a window, or a small piece of the wall will be taken out to aid whatever breach denials on the other side. And most importantly, with what we saw to that ace, it means that DZ cannot swing. They can't rotate through garage, because the idea is somebody from Space Station will be holding that particular angle and waiting to punish you. Downstairs, the Wamai gets spotted now as we're starting to inch ever closer to the end of round number 2, and this has been a significantly better round for Space Station, though I would say that right now the expectations for SSG are quite low after what happened on Coastline and after that very first round. They've droned out Mint downstairs, and right now he's not really that much of a factor or an influence. He's going to get swung on and do quite a bit of damage to Rampy, expecting somebody to drop from the hatch. SSG is going to need to coordinate this well, and there they go. He's there to stop any of the hard breach that would go on a construction wall. Hyper had been felled earlier on. Eclipse will join him now. So this is a better start for SSG, significantly better. 2 opening picks. They win these duels, and right now they have only 2 members of DZ that are possibly on the bomb site. Mint finally finished off from down below. There goes an EMP tossed out, and it's Hot and Cold in a 1v5. 15 seconds remaining. He sees the Zofia of Bosco swing on over. Down below he goes, and he's going to need to stop this one in its tracks. Common spot. There goes a Nitro Cell. It does some damage to Thinking Nade, but it doesn't get its target, which is Fultz. Fultz almost with the diffuser down, and Hot and Cold with a tiny bit of HP. He's going to need to creep up top of red stairs. They've got line of sight on him, and it's Thinking Nade after that diffuser had gone down in the post plant to secure the round for Space Station.
Great read there from SSG. Everything that DZ set up to deny Space Station control was directly countered and confronted. Space Station dealt with the roamer, who was attempting to late flank. They dealt with the Wamai down in dining, who is trying to impact trick the thermite off the wall in construction. They dealt with all of the players downstairs before they executed into cash. And all of the anchors were ultimately, well, they just lost their fights straight up to Space Station. So all of these interesting and different things that we saw DZ pull out, which I really like a lot of the ways that they set themselves up in that round, were so well handled from Space Station. You got to be impressed by that. The question is, are they going to be able to keep that up consistently? Because, you know, that's the first round we've seen Space Station get in quite a while now. They've been having a rough go of it so far through this series. And we did see a flawless round from Space Station in map number 1. But they weren't able to keep that sort of momentum up in any kind of consistent way. So we'll see if this is the start of good things to come for Space Station. This is the beginning of their, you know, map number 2 to push us to the map number 3. But I'm not so sure. I'm not convinced yet. DarkZero will go back to cash, and they'll give it another go, see if they can correct their mistakes from last time.
5 seconds left before insertion. Attackers must locate and defuse.
Fult's still on the thermite here. He'll be doing double hard breach with Thinking Nade. So, Canadian on Ash. I'm kind of sorry for laughing at Canadian being on Ash, but I will say that sorry?
It's his favorite role.
I do find it very odd with these role swaps. We saw a little bit of change to their roles on Coastline, and, you know, putting Rampy on Smoke was, I don't know if that's the right play necessarily to make. Right now, why are you putting Canadian on a very entry heavy role? I mean, Ash is not the same operator that she used to be. She doesn't have flashes anymore. She can't burn any ADSs the same way, but she does have access to 3 of those breaching charges, or breaching rounds. So because of this, Ash is more of a utility operator than she ever has been, and a lot of teams aren't gambling an Ash as the first operator in the building because, well, you lose out on quite a lot. So it isn't that abnormal, I guess, to see it. But Canadian in this role, obviously, he hasn't really been flourishing, and he's been having a hard day so far. But all of SSG, in fact, have been having a relatively hard day. Fultz, in particular, also not exactly excelling. Whereas in our question, our community poll that was asked earlier, who's going to do better, Hyper or Fultz? Right now, I would say the argument would very much be in favor of Hyper.
Great impact tricking there on the Selma that was trying to get the wall that Eclipse is using to survive here. Earlier, it was an Evil Eye that got the Selma. The last one will be destroyed. Eclipse gets the refrag off of Hot and Cold, who was peeking at top red to try and keep Eclipse alive. So mission accomplished for Hot and Cold, but it cost him his life. In the end, though, an even exchange. Overall, SSG in slight favor. This peek here could have been good for DZ, but it's not going to happen. He won't win the fight down in lower garage. Down goes your Raptor player. That's Eclipse, finally. So Space Station's mission accomplished, and they will rise up those stairs to get garage control and to start their prepare for the actual site execution. We've got one player inside of construction for DZ. He's going to hop out. That's Hyper. He'll hop out when the plant starts to go down. But that's not the moment. Not right now. His teammates die, though. He actually has to rotate into the site, putting him in a very awkward position. A nice headshot onto Rampy. And with Fultz actually down, this is a 1v2 right now. He's going to get picked up. Hyper sizing the situation up. Peeks and loses the fight to Thinking Nade. Not the play there. Thinking Nade was too prepared. Great patience there for SSG, not seizing or not rushing into their advantage and losing the round.
I can't say that that was poorly played by Hyper, because when you're in a 1v3 and you know that they're going to be coming from garage, whether or not you're aware of Fultz being picked back up, not really the point. Point being that you're going to be in a tough spot to try and pressure the bomb or the diffuser planter going down right next to the bomb. And with Thinking Nade doing what Thinking Nade does best, which is being an immovable object, Thinking Nade is an absolute rock on flank watch. I think you have to take the fight, and I think that was read correctly. SSG now proving that this bomb site on attack is something that they know quite well, and even with some of these role swaps, it's working out for them, I think, better than a lot of people would have expected. And certainly we were talking about on Coastline and now carrying through to Clubhouse, it's definitely working better in SSG's favor. Because of the site rotation being the way it is, DarkZero can go back downstairs to Church and Arsenal. And if you look at the lineup that DZ is bringing, well, it's exactly the same. So DarkZero can do what they did before and back in round number 1, which is that roam upstairs, killing time and CCTV cache, holding master, holding logistics if they need to, and wasting as much time and winning all of their gunfights before SSG can even begin to sniff that bottom floor. And it certainly seems, by what we can see, that DarkZero is going to do a very similar setup upstairs that confounded SSG previously.
Nothing special going on just yet. Spacestation with some good droning on the west side, but their adversaries on the east of the top floor. Hot and Cold even trying to assist coming out of New Blue or Secret. Playing by Lounge, is now Stock. He's just looking for drones, looking to see if there's anyone clearing out below. He's even got Eclipse here over by the coat hanger. So we'll see how this roam works out. So far, DZ have done a good job of delaying, but they have to be careful that they don't get corralled and cut off before they can make their way back to site. SSG trying to do that just now. Canadian in a good position. He'll give away his position by shooting that. I would assume that's a mute jammer. But with this control, he establishes that he can start his push further onto the top floor. C4 will miss, but Eclipse's shot won't. Mid does go down upstairs, though, likely still by red hallway. So that's where he was playing earlier, possibly somewhere else. Either way, oh, yeah, looks like he was cut off on the retreat through Secret. An even man count now. Hyper trying to challenge Jacuzzi Balcony. Balconies have not been friendly to him on these fights recently, and that trend is going to continue as he starts to fall back. It looks like he'll be able to make it all the way back, and he wasted a decent amount of time. The only problem is the... Oh.
I don't know what happened there, but it's not good.
Well, that will probably cost DZ the round. I was about to say the only problem is the HP on Hyper and Eclipse. But with Eclipse being actually officially checked out there by Hyper, that should be round number 3 for SSG. So we're looking at a really good comeback, or a really good start of a comeback here, at least in terms of the overall series for SSG. They look pretty dominant on Clubhouse thus far. DZ's going to need some time to reset. If I were them, I would take this round to do so, to just, you know, rethink how you want to handle this match overall.
I mean, the gods weighed in and decided that there needed to be a sacrifice, human sacrifice and such. Eclipse was the one to meet that fate. Skies has been EMP'd at the bottom of Church, which means that his scanner is not going to be particularly useful. So that cardiac sensor will be put back in his pocket, and all of the church wall will be opened up aplenty. Space Station obviously don't have the clear voyage that they want. They have the numbers advantage, but they're going to have to walk in with Fultz just barging in, taking out Skies. He can then begin to attempt to defuse. DZ are really struggling, and they're losing their gunfights as Rampy inside of Blue wins his duel. Hyper finds one, but he's in a 1v3, a similar situation to the previous round. And this should be easy for SSG to hold out. Pistol in hand, Hyper, a clean shot on the Rampy. Diffuser down will make this a lot more difficult than it needs to be for DarkZero. I don't know how he's going to fight his way out of it, but the one thing that both of these teams are excellent at is just simply patience. And it's going to be shown right now from SSG. They're not engaging in any fights. They can just hold and wait as they reposition to watch the hatches. Hyper now losing even greater HP. He manages to take down one of Fultz. He's got 13 seconds left. Canadian's going to have to get down to get to him in time. Off falls Hyper, and well, it's about to be 7 seconds. It's past the point of no return. The round will go in favor of SSG. Canadian doesn't even need the kill. But I mean, if you've seen the scoreboard today, Canadian absolutely needs the kill, and he'll get it. Round number 4 goes in favor of Space Station. That's 3 in a row for them, and they can do no worse than tie the first half.
Nice try there from Hyper. You could see he was trying to make up for past mistakes. But hey, you know, imagine if there were one more body and one more trade earlier in the round. So, well, we could call that a fluke round, I'd say, with the TK on the retreat there from DZ. They also didn't handle their roam amazingly well, though DZ did get as much as they gave. So that's fine. I wouldn't call it a terrible roam, and yeah, I'm curious how DZ's going to bounce off of that one. They're not going to go back to the bottom floor. They'll go to Jim instead.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs
See
as
how
they can.
Jim treats them. I wonder why Canadian wants to know who Legion is. Yeah,
What did you say?
Canadian asked in the chat who was Legion, and I'm just curious why he's curious.
I mean, maybe he gunned him.
Maybe.
Rampy, I doubt you were playing Legion on attack, but nice try.
He almost got us.
No.
No? Not at all?
Eclipse was on Malusi. The Skies was on Pulse.
Hyper was on Malusi.
Hyper was on Malusi,
Eclipse
sorry.
was on
Eclipse was on Kaid.
Yeah.
Hot and Cold would have been... Legion then, wouldn't it be?
Maybe. That sounds right.
I do not have a phone because then Mint would have stayed on mute.
Right, and I think Mint has been staying on mute. So that role hasn't changed. So yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. It was either him or Skies, right? But I think it was him. Because I can't remember.
Skies was Pulse,
Skies
so
was,
I know that much.
You know Skies was Pulse? Okay, then yeah.
I know.
It was definitely hot.
I would bet my house on it.
It was probably hot then, yeah. But
Yeah.
I still wonder why he wonders. That's, like, the more interesting point.
Maybe he got the kill and he was proud of himself.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
Who knows?
Interesting the calm silence from DarkZero. They might have just, you know... Honestly, sometimes when you're playing...
They're focused, Michael. They're focused.
Yeah, exactly.
They're dialed in. They want to win. Lots of energy, lots of focus.
Oh, I know that one. I don't remember what it's from, though.
It's from The Other Guys. I quote that movie actually a fair bit, and I feel like it's an underappreciated Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg movie.
Yeah, I remember
everybody quotes Anchorman and Step Brothers. Nobody quotes The Other Guys. That's fine.
I remember now when he was shouting it. Lots of energy, lots of focus.
Yeah, at the start of the workday. Anyway, we'll go back into this. Interesting. I think that all of the SSG guys I think are using the dev skin. Because that's exactly what that looks like. That looks like the dev skin. What is this? Hyper has two bodies lined up at the breach hole that is open at the top of red stairs, and Eclipse will be shooting away at the ankles. SSG are just trying to storm the gates right now, but they are being rebuffed at every opportunity. There's still one more at the top of red. They'll be smoked out. This action is happening fast and furious, and we'll see if there's 8 sequels to be had. Eclipse getting smoked by his own teammate. He'll swing out onto Rampy, capitalize, looks to the left, but it's to the right as where Fultz is positioned, and boy, oh boy, SSG ends up coming out of that one with only 2 bodies, 3 for DarkZero. But there's still a minute left for SSG to be able to fix this, and they've got plenty of utility. 3 stuns in the hands of Thinking Nade. As well, you've got 10x Kairos and an exothermic charge for Fultz. The only problem is that if they don't go for frags and they attempt a defuse, it's going to put Thinking Nade in a 1v3. Still, that's not a bad spot to necessarily be in, but SSG now struggling with a mute jammer that's on the jacuzzi wall. Unsure if they'll be able to get it or not. This is going to be tough because they will likely need to break in through a window, hop in, and they will be extremely vulnerable. There's 2 shotguns up for DarkZero as well. Hot and Cold, of course, has the Alda in hand, and that thing with 80 bullets can just, well, once 15 seconds hit, you can just start firing away. Equalizing, though, as down goes Mint, the mute inside of Logistics, still searching for his very first kill. 10 seconds to rush in. A great flash from Thinking Nade. He won't be able to do too much as it's Hot and Cold inside of the bathroom. He versus Fultz in a 1v1, 5 seconds remaining. Who's going to push first? And it's Hot and Cold to win the fight against Fultz. DarkZero takes the round, only their second so far on defense here on Clubhouse, and it's on Jim Master of all the bomb sites.
Good job there from DZ. Mostly that round came down to the play inside of Cash. So much time wasted, so much utility wasted, so many kills for Eclipse. He did a great job as Malusi in Cash. So well done to DZ taking that one. SSG did have some great answers, though. I have to hand it to them as well. No point seemed fully checked out of that round. In the end, the patience and the waiting on sight of those last 3 defenders was just too much for the last 2 attackers to surmount. So, well done. Again, we'll see if DZ is able to take this last round 3-3. That would be pretty solid. I think that we're in certainly a very different meta right now than we were not so long ago. The Neon Dawn has changed a lot of things, and in my assessment, we've seen a little bit more of an attacker-favored everything. Not just maps like Coastline, but every map. Not outright attacker-favored, but more than it used to be, because we used to have, what, 60, 70% defensive win rates on a lot of these maps? So to me, a 3-3 split's not crazy for either team on Clubhouse, not like it used to be. However, a 4-2 right now for SSG, that's still gonna be real good for Spacestation. So DarkZero needs to take this last round.
Oh, I totally agree. I think it's always important to put these team stats into context and put the map stats as well into context. And I think it's very apparent that with the role swaps that are coming in, teams are obviously trying out new things, and it's hard to really contextualize a team's success or lack thereof success based upon the operators they're playing. And I will continuously point to my good friend Canadian playing on the Ashe as a very unusual role for him.
I mean, sure it's unusual, and yes, there are definitely players on his team that could play Ashe pretty well. But I will say,
there's two that jump to mind.
Yeah, no big deal. But I will say, Canadian has a long history of playing Ashe. Like, it's not exactly a new role for him, even if she is a different operator. So yeah, it's not crazy. I think a lot of viewers probably don't know Canadian's history of playing Ashe, because we're talking like year 1, year 2 sort of stuff here. But no, he's done it before. He knows how to do it. So yeah. And also, you mentioned it earlier, Parker. This might have something to do with this conversation. SI, I mean, it's right around the corner, and that is fresh in everyone's mind. So the things you show here are not always going to be the same things you show there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's as well very evident with some of the strats that we've seen get played. SSG on Coastline in particular was very out of the ordinary for how they approach that map. They are usually much more practiced, not as split apart, not as isolated, and not as aggressive. And almost everything that was shown from them on Coastline is the opposite of what was shown from them in previous events, whether it be the November Major, whether it be the NA League matches previously. So Clubhouse, I think, so far is a little bit more standard as to how the teams are taking it, but that's because I don't think there's as much variation that you can necessarily have on attack. Fultz just sprints into the bomb site, by the way. You can take him off the entry operator, but you can't take the entry off of him. He comes in, he finds 2 kills, and he's getting that diffuser down as well. Nitro cell from Eclipse. Well, it will connect, but it's a little bit too late, about 2 seconds too late. Hot and Cold punished and then finished off by Thinking Naden. It's a 1v2 with Eclipse. He's got the Vector in hand. He won't be able to outduel Bosco, and DZ's hopes of taking that half, or at least tying it, well, they dry up. Spacestation emerges from the first half 4-2 and looked pretty good here so far on Clubhouse.
Parker, if you took, a lot of people aren't going to get this, but if you took Fultz and just renamed him so nobody knew who he was, you put him in FPL and he pushed into the site like that, then he would be kicked in like 3 weeks max. Like, the pro players would complain and they'd be like, "This guy just pushes into things, man." I said, "I can't."
No way, this dude just swung. Come on, man.
He just swung. Like, what is he thinking?
Dude, Thermite just swung into sight. What's going on?
So no, but that was mostly Fultz. Really assertive play there inside of Church. It was a brazen swing to be sure, but he got 2 kills off of it. So yeah, if it works, it works. So great there, great job to him. I think that DarkZero was slotted to win that. They had the utility, they had the setup. They just weren't ready for Fultz to just, well, walk on in through Moto door. And all the better for Spacestation. So a good first half, 4-2. That's super solid. And I think that DarkZero, we're looking at a unless attack is so aided by the Thatcher not being banned, that this is a totally different map, that's very realistically, it's possible. Unless that Thatcher is the factor here that's making all the difference, then we are certainly looking at a map number 3 at this point.
Attackers dropped the diffuser. Attackers recovered the bomb diffuser.
And it could be the Thatcher. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, we see Thatcher bans on this map all the time.
No, he's not banned, Parker. He's being played, is what I mean. So,
yeah, I'm aware, but Thatcher being played doesn't change the fact that the attackers still had some difficulty getting the hatches and doing so quite late. So I don't know. I mean, I would defer to your wisdom and your judgment, and I will say that I do agree that Thatcher being available changes things, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, You sometimes will see a Thatcher get banned, but Maverick will stay up because Capitao is almost always a ban. No way. Once again, you are banished from FPL, young man. Skies is inside of the bomb site. 2 members of the defense from Spacestation have fallen, and Thinking Nade comes painfully close to joining them. On the ground, slithering like a snake, is Skies, watching over towards the rest of the bomb site, but he's got a job to do. And with 30 HP, he'll go for the defuse. He and Hyper, side by side, they combined for 60 HP. Diffuser goes down, Skies will sit on top of it. Mint losing some HP as it's a retake now from SSG. A second kill comes out for Thinking Nate. As now a Nitro cell gets tossed on over. It will not connect the way it wants. Skies punished as SSG just running on in. Hyper manages to drag 2 of them down, and it's a glorified 1v1. Mint versus Canadian, and Mint will need to break this donut that he's on in order to secure the round. Tons of timer left for Canadian to play off of. He doesn't know the positioning of the Mozzie. Hits the collarbone, but not the head. Pre-fires away, and there you have it. Mint will break the 0 next to his kills. He'll pick up 1, and it's highly impactful. Protects the diffuser, and DZ takes their first round on attack.
I was about to say, Parker, can we say impact frags? Because, oh boy, I mean, if you're going to get 1 kill and round number 7, that's the exact one you need to get. Great job there to Mint. We'll see if he can pick up more as this match continues on. He's on those support roles, though. He's doing his job, and that's the most important thing. I love the assertive play we're seeing from both teams. SSG on that last round of the first half, with Fultz in particular, rushing on in, seizing the opportunity. DZ, in that round we just witnessed, lead off pick on the roamer who is trying to make it through the drop that was open, not making it in the end, and because that roamer didn't make it back, there wasn't any site presence in church for SSG because it's the roamer's job to hold it. When he gets back, he's not supposed to die. So DZ counting on that, knowing what their opponent's setup looks like beforehand, having done the VOD review, and just making the play that they know is available to them. That's beautiful stuff. So a little bit of a ray of sunshine there onto DarkZero's dark map, and we'll see if that keeps going. It's certainly possible. Once again, we're seeing a very heavy roam here for SSG on the top floor. Castle barricades and the whole setup. It's the space station defense of the bottom floor, as it's dubbed. We'll see if it works this time. It didn't work last time.
The clubhouse dub house for both of these teams, Michael?
Yes, it is the
dub house.
The dub house, yes. I mean, and whose W is going to break here? Who has the lowercase W, Parker?
I will say that the W flies on the flag of the Chicago Cubs, where Bosco is from, or at least lives from time to time, as he's now in Vegas with the rest of the gang.
Is that hockey or?
The Chicago Cubs are a baseball team, Michael, and it offends me that you don't know that.
I don't know sports very well, but go A's. So.
That's fine. There you go. As somebody who's from Oakland, you have to cheer for them. You signed a contract when you were born. But regardless of who ends up getting the dub or not, we are seeing interesting takes from these teams thus far. And I mean, it doesn't make our jobs any easier when teams so dramatically blow up what are oftentimes default strategies that they like to run, aka they default to them. But it does at least make it more entertaining on our end because we get to see new things. And so far there has been an awful lot of that. This matchup has been chock full of exploration into the meta surrounding these two teams. And the one thing I will say is that Clubhouse so far being a very attacker decided map is an intriguing one. 5 rounds for the attackers, 2 rounds for the defense. And well, SSG's kind of hoping that the defense starts to play a little bit better because, well, it's going to be them riding it out until overtime. Canadian, the very first pick, and he breaks even as he's now at 6-2-4. And of course, it's through the garage wall and it's on Mint. That was the reverse of what we just saw at the tail end of the previous round. He gets his revenge.
Can I make another joke about the brazen plays, Parker? Or is that segment's done?
You may.
I'm sick of these young players like Canadian coming out of ranked and peeking stuff like they think they could do anything with no information, man. Like, who do you think you are to get those early kills? On the Thatcher of all operators, too. That's a great pick there for SSG.
Yeah, that's huge. In through dirt now is hot and cold. He'll creep up his whole way up. This is when if you're playing ranked and you didn't drone, you pray to God that they don't have a lesion, because you'll get right up to the door and, well, you'll hit the goo mine and it'll stick into your foot, and the jig is up at that point. There's a door still closed for hot and cold. The sledge of Eclipse goes for broke. He heads on into boxes. He gets taken down, not able to get much more than that. But DZ just sprints on in, and Skies will need to do some great work as it's him in a 1v3. Finds Canadian. Diffuser away. 6 seconds. Going for the plant by the boxes with some protection around him. There's no nitro cell, so they'll have to swing on in. Skies gets up and he finds Thinking Nade, but he pivots, can't do it. Old teammate Bosco is the one who gets the very final kill, and SSG takes round number 8. They're up 5-3 on their very first defensive win.
So close there. Inches away from victory. If Bosco was a second behind on his peak with his teammate, Skies resets, and then it's just a 1v1 in the post plant. Skies can win that. He certainly seemed like he was on point. Almost his moment. But Space Station, they keep the train rolling on into space. It sounded better in my head too. Anyway, they're gonna go to cache CCTV, and we'll see how they could do there. Basement locked away, although very closely. I mean, it could have been an SSG round. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Could have been a DZ round. So keep that in mind when we go back to the bottom floor. If we go back to the bottom floor. Space Station might have to change things up because they ran the same strategy on the bottom floor twice.
Defenders, protect your
It
bombs
lost
from
the
being
first.
defused by
It
attackers.
failed the first time, was successful the second time, but in a 1v1 basically. So that doesn't exactly count. Bottom floor might be a weakness of Space Station. It might be something they have to consider. Again, if we even get to that point, it's possible Space Station locks out in the next 2 rounds.
Entirely possible, absolutely. And then, of course, it's Oregon. Everybody's favorite map, Oregon. If you are a fan of the EU League, just hearing the word Oregon sends you into spiraling despair. So I promise you, we will treat the map kindly, our fellow European friends, should it arise. But SSG looked relatively solid. Both of these teams have now just decided that the best strategy for a lot of these plays are to just charge into the bomb site and win your gun duels. And I can't blame them to a certain extent, because when you're playing on LAN, as these teams are, and you'll see right now on the bottom of your screen, SSG's team cam on the left, DarkZero's team cam on the right, these teams are not playing from their homes. And even though they are in team houses but a couple miles apart in Las Vegas, the LAN build puts you in similar rooms very close to each other, and you're playing out of the same location. The game is entirely different. It's far smoother. A lot of players will tell you that the hit reg feels a lot different. And, well, it allows you to make plays that you typically wouldn't be able to play before. And it punishes you when you try to get away with being a little too cute. Speaking of cuteness, bandit tricking is pretty standard stuff. Nothing really cute about what Thinking Nade was just doing, but he's not able to edge out the EMPs that are thrown down in his way. And as we saw from DZ when they were on defense, they picked the wrong wall. Thinking Nade peels off. The CCTV wall is now open, and that is obviously a good thing for DarkZero, and they managed to do it relatively quickly because we still got over half the round to go.
A little bit of patience here, a slow roll, I guess you could say. Canadian wants to get a late flank off. He might be able to as he starts to play with the idea of ascending main stairs. DZ just setting up all the rotations they think necessary up here. Well, opening up some of the floor to put pressure on Canadian. They might not know he's there, but even opening those holes can help out. That drone being shot is going to give away Canadian's position, but it looks like the X-Kairos will still be able to open up the wall. Nate goes over to prevent the impact tricking, or at least make it more difficult, possibly get a kill. Shield pinged. That'll need to be dealt with later in the round. The wall, I believe, partially opened, but not fully. And there are impacts in the pockets of Fultz. We'll use those impacts to great effect. SSG starts the kills off with 2 big frags, 1 in construction, 1 over by logistics. And the flank for Canadian is working out, but he'll lose the fight to Skies. So even though he was able to position himself well, he wasn't able to pull the trigger when it mattered most. Shield's still alive inside a cache. Still a problem for DarkZero. Someone needs to clear the ADS and the Wamai discs so that Eclipse can nade that shield and it ceases to be a problem. ADS is cleared, shield dealt with. Min will also get one pick, but Bolts answers back immediately. That's your pressure from the balcony alleviated. Skies from the window gets one, but once again, Spacestation's on top of it. Eclipse in the 1v2. He's up and close, and he'll get one, but he needs to find another in 3 seconds. It's just not gonna happen. Thinking Nade will win it on time. Spacestation doing great work with refragging each other.
Well, I might have to give you that call about Thatcher because, well, the attackers are having a hell of a day so far today, Michael. The attackers doing really well. The defenders finally starting to put it together, though. And while for SSG, that's 2 defensive rounds in a row, seemingly breaking this attacker palooza that we have on Clubhouse. And DZ, I don't think managed their utility all that well on that round, struggling a little bit too much with the clear denial or the gadget denial, whatever you want to call it, the anti-clear of Jaeger and Wamai. And then being a bit too late, frankly, not quick enough to be able to punish the defenders that were sitting behind it. And you noted that deployable shield. That, I think, is a perfectly good example of how that utility from SSG